It's Mark Leslie, and I'm here with Free Friday Frights. Today is Friday, August 24th, and today being a fiction week, I'd share something that's sort of akin to fiction, poetry. I'm going to share three dark poems that were included in my story collection, One Hand Screaming. I also brought with me some special sound effects today, so I thought maybe getting into the mood music. This is a piece of music I've used several times before in certain videos I've shared, and it's called Gloom Horizon, and it's by Kevin MacLeod, who is a musician and a composer. And so let's get started with the mood music, and we'll get into poetry as well. There we go. That's probably just enough to enjoy the background. The first poem you're going to hear today is The Sound of One Man Screaming. A pen is lifted from a cup that waits patiently on the edge of the desk, sometimes in haste, sometimes with measured care. The pen is lifted, perched between three fingers, and brought down to kiss an empty page. A blank computer screen glares, the incessant whirring of a hard drive fan, an undying, steady, rhythmic pulse, both mocking the absence of activity in the room, until the distinct sound of fingers clacking the keyboard announced the presence of words on the screen. A coffee mug filled with a simple black blend, sometimes full, sometimes cool, often touched merely for the comfort it offers, overlooks the entire process. If you listen very carefully, you will hear, more silent than the sound of the steam rising off the coffee, ever so gently, the sound of one man screaming. So that was the first of three poems that I'm going to read, and that was called The Sound of One Man Screaming. And that was a poem that was written specifically for my 2004 collection, One Hand Screaming, because that was sort of the play on words, the sound of one hand clapping, the sound of one hand screaming, in terms of one man screaming, and all the screams that come from my fiction. And what this really was is the screaming I was trying to get to in the poem was when a writer feels like they're facing writer's block. It's like this internal, really loud and intense scream that nobody can hear but you. And so what I had done when I wrote the poem is I was actually looking around at all the things around me and trying to figure out what I was going to write about. And I started to write about the things. I started to write about the pen, particularly at that moment, that tipping point between writer's block and inspiration, picking up the pen, that screams coming to the surface, it's getting put onto the page. The computer hard drive, but back in the early days of computers before laptops, where you just hear that whirring of the hard drive, and it was like this thing that just sort of could annoy you or frustrate you because it was going on and on and on while you were looking for that inspiration. And of course, as always, the coffee, always there. Sometimes drank, sometimes touched, sometimes not touched, but it's always there. And all of these things are always silent sentinels overlooking that process of the sound of one man screaming. So that was the first one. The second one I'm going to read is a very dark humor piece called Frost After Midnight. The frost performs its secret ministry while I perform my own. My victim's cries come loud and hark again, but then no more. The inmates of my cottage all at rest, leaving me to a solitude which suits my morbid musings. Glance down at my side. In death, my infant slumbers peacefully. So this was actually inspired by one of the romantic poets. I wrote this while I was studying it, and it was actually the Frost at Midnight poem. And what I was doing is, as I was studying, as I was reading, I was looking at this poem, and I did a sort of the Weird Al thing to it, where I tried to take the structure and I tried to take this beautiful, haunting poem I loved so much and make it just a little bit more dark. And so these sort of came to me as I was writing the poem. And of course, I have no idea where these dark things come from. I just pull them out of the air. That's what happens. This particular one is yet another Weird Al style one, but it's a poem set to a song, one of my favorite songs from Elvis Presley. And again, I wrote this around the time I was studying the Romantic poets back in university. And they would sometimes refer to each other in poems. And so that is why the title of this is called With Apologies to E.P. And I'm not going to sing it, I'm just going to do it as a poem, but you'll probably recognize the song. Are you vengeful tonight? Will you come back tonight? Are you pissed because I sliced you apart? Does your undead mind stray to that bright summer day when I killed you and carved out your heart? Are the chairs in your parlor still bloodied and stained? Have you crawled from your gravesite to haunt me again? Now my heart's filled with fear, for these sounds which I hear make me think that you've come back tonight. Ooh. Yeah, that's the Are You Lonesome Tonight, which is one of my favorite Elvis songs. And I couldn't resist playing, throwing some darker musings, the Weird Al style, although Weird Al would never be so dark and demented as that. But it's one of the ones I'm always tempted, because this is a favorite karaoke song of mine, I'm always tempted to flip on this song and freak the hell out of everyone in the room. And so that was just about 3 of my poems, which were a little bit darker. Thanks for checking them out. I enjoyed sharing them. Aren't you glad I didn't sing? Anyways, thanks for checking out Free Friday Frights. Again, it's Mark Leslie. You can check out more Friday Frights every Friday on my website at markleslie.ca/freefridayfrights and on my Facebook page, where I'll be doing a live Facebook video of the reading. Again, these were 3 dark poems from my collection, One Hand Screaming. Have a fantastic weekend.